coming into child's pose for our neck and shoulders practice. If you can take the knees out wide to the edges of your yoga mat and then bring the soles of the feet together. And then you're just going to slide that blanket down between the knees. And then come on down, taking the right cheek onto that blanket and just letting yourself rest for a moment. Just letting go, letting the forearms melt into the floor below you. Feeling all 10 fingers in contact with the floor. Breathing deeply in through the nose, feeling the cool air as it enters the nostrils, and then exhaling completely through the mouth as the warm air exits the body. Begin deepening the breath by drawing the inhale down into the lower parts of the lungs, expanding the rib cage, feeling the belly press into the thighs. And as you exhale, relaxing the pelvic floor, relaxing the hips down to the heels, letting go of any tension in the shoulders. And then trying to keep that relaxation throughout the body, gently turn the head so that the left cheek is down on your blanket. Continue deepening the relaxation, letting go over and over again with every exhale. And taking a moment here to set an intention for your practice. Maybe it's to find a little bit of peace, to slow down from the day. Maybe it's the opposite and you're trying to create energy to complete a task this evening. And whatever that is for you, trying to integrate that into the mind's eye. And then taking the forehead flat onto the blanket. You might need to tuck the chin slightly to get the nose out of the way. Inhaling, exhaling to soften into the ground below you, into the blanket. Taking a deep inhale. And on your exhale, reach the arms up overhead and press up onto your fingertips. Gently peeling the forehead off of the floor. And begin to walk your fingertips off to the right side of your mat. Anchoring that left hip down to the ground, you can take the gaze up and underneath the left arm. Lengthening throughout the side body. And then walk it through center, taking your fingertips off to the left side, rooting your right hip down to the ground and taking a peek underneath the right arm. Creating space throughout the side of the body as you inhale. Exhaling to deepen that side bend. And then walking the fingertips back to center. Go ahead and press up into tabletop, coming onto hands, knees, stacking the shoulders over the wrists and knees under the hips. Keeping the blanket where it is for a moment, we'll take a couple of cat-cow here, dropping the belly down, stretching out that abdomen and looking up toward the sky. And then exhale to round the spine, pressing the floor away from you and take a peek down at the thighs. Alternating between cat and cow here, working your own breath to your movement. Rooting the left hand into the ground. Reach the right hand up toward the sky. Exhale, taking a twist and lowering that head down to the blanket. Letting the back of the hand rest on the ground, the ear down to the floor. Deepening your twist by inhaling, breathing into that heart space. Pressing into that left hand, inhale, unwind from that twist, reaching up to the sky. And then release that hand to the floor. Other side, reaching left arm up. Exhale, threading the needle, bringing that left ear down to the blanket. Deepening the breath into that heart space. Finding a gentle spinal twist. And then release the twist, coming back into tabletop. Shifting your weight onto left hand, reach the right hand behind the head. We'll twist to tap the elbow down to the forearm, and then inhale to lift and look up underneath that arm. So we're trying to get some rotation in the mid-back here. Some gentle movement, just waking up all of the joints of the spine, the shoulders. And then release that right hand to the ground, floating the left hand up behind the head. And we'll twist to tap the elbow down to the forearm. And then inhale to lift and look up. And then release that hand down to the ground. We are going to come around to come onto your blanket, taking a seat here for a moment. Whatever feels comfortable for you, you can bring the soles of the feet together away from the body, or you can cross the feet and the legs underneath you. Rooting those sits bones down into the ground, moving the fleshy parts of your seat away. Growing tall through the crown of the head as you root the hands into the knees. Taking a moment here to close the eyes, taking a deep breath in. Exhale, softening shoulders away from the ears. I'm just checking in with what the body needs. Are there any areas that you're holding on to tension, maybe throughout the jaw, the neck, shoulders, the pectorals, the muscles in front of the chest? And then tucking the chin down to the chest, go ahead and lace your fingers, placing them behind the head, allowing the weight of gravity to lower that chin down to the chest a little more. Begin to rock the head from side to side. Just noticing any tension between right side, left side. And then release those hands, rolling it up through the crown of the head. Taking the gaze upward, lace the fingers underneath the chin and gently press the fingertips up underneath that jawline. Releasing the hands, but keep the gaze upward. Dropping left ear down to left shoulder and then right ear down to right shoulder. Again, just noticing differences between right and left side. Maybe there's an area of tension that you might notice and like to be more present in that stretch and hang out there for a moment. And then release, coming back to center here, taking the gaze over the left shoulder and then over the right shoulder, just getting a little bit of rotation in the cervical spine. And then coming back to center, taking our posture reset, lace your fingers together, press the palms down toward the floor. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, take a little twist to the left, stacking your vertebrae one on top of the other, keeping a long line from the top of the head to the tailbone. Inhale, breathing in deeply into the rib cage. Exhale, deepen your twist. And let's take a gaze over the shoulder. On your exhale, release, coming back up through center, and let's take the other side, stacking each vertebrae on top of itself, breathing deeply into the rib cage. Inhale, sweep the arms up overhead. Exhale, take the hands to heart center for a moment. Gently press the palms together and lift the elbows up. So we're kind of drawing the hands downward. Okay, gently draw the chin in to the chest, so we're creating length throughout the back of the neck. Prayer position. Inhaling deeply, exhaling completely. Inhale, reach the hands up overhead, and exhale, lowering both hands down by your side. Rooting that left hand down into the ground, we'll inhale, float the right arm up and over, just taking a gentle side bending stretch here. And then release, coming back up through center, and take the other side. Coming back up through center, extending both legs out long in front of you. So coming into this wide-legged seated position. The legs might not go very far, especially because we're not super warmed up. But wherever you are, we want the toes, the knees pointing upward. Inhale, reach the arms up overhead. Exhale, hinge forward at the hips, placing the hands on the floor. Wherever that is for you, You can walk them in, you can walk them away, whatever's feeling good today. If it's accessible to you to come down onto the elbows, feel free to do that, but not pushing through anything and honoring your body where it is. Deepening the breath. And then walking the fingertips back up through center here, bending your right knee, taking the sole of the foot inside the thigh. Back of the hand comes inside the knee, reaching right arm up and over for side bending, but also taking the gaze up to the ceiling. You'll get a gentle twist there. And then coming back up through center, planting that right hand behind you. We're going to press the hips up, coming up onto the shin, reaching the left arm up and back. So getting a little bit of weight bearing in the arm, getting a nice stretch throughout the front of the body. Inhale and exhale, releasing the hips back down to the ground, and we'll take the other side, bringing the sole of the left foot into the inner thigh. Back of the hand comes inside the knee. Reach the left arm up and over for a side bending stretch. Take your gaze up and underneath the arm. Inhale deeply. And as you exhale, come on up through center here. Taking both soles of the feet together in front of you for cobbler's pose. Trying to draw the heels in as close as they will go to the body. You can grab onto the ankles, stacking each vertebrae on top of itself, sitting as tall as you can. Reach the right hand back and the left hand. Press the palms into the floor as you lift the chest up to the ceiling. You may need to come up onto the fingertips depending on how high the blanket is up off the floor. Really lifting the chest up, opening throughout that heart. And then release, taking the hands back onto the ankles for a moment. Pressing the elbows down into the knees, really opening up across the chest, diving the chest through the shoulders, keeping the gaze forward. Taking the hands outside of the knees, bringing both knees together, and we'll work our way back into our tabletop here. And you can move your blanket off to the side. And keep a yoga block handy, so we want that close to the mat for later. So we'll come into our tabletop here and take a couple of rounds of cat-cow here, just noticing the differences between what you feel now compared to what you felt at the beginning of your practice. Maybe more blood flow, maybe more flexibility in the spine. Great job. Walking the hands forward, index fingers face the top of the mat. Let's tuck both toes, send the hips up and back into your first downward facing dog. Bending those knees, allowing the spine to straighten out completely. Alternating pedaling, right heel, left heel, just creating some length throughout the back of the leg here. And as you begin to open up, find some stillness, dropping both heels down toward the ground. Dive that chest down. Relax the away from the ears. Head is heavy. And then take your gaze up between the hands. We're sending our weight forward into our hands, finding plank pose, stacking the shoulders over the wrist, pushing the floor away from you. Holding for 3, 2, 1. Lower the knees down to the ground. Still finding that plank pose, so really dropping the hips down. Spiral the elbow creases to face forward. And then you're bending the elbows, allowing them to graze the rib cage as you completely and controlled lower yourself down to the floor. Taking a moment when you get there to find some stillness and catch your breath. Emptying out the lungs. Hands underneath the shoulders. Let's loop the shoulders down and back and peel the forehead and chest up off of the ground for cobra pose. Should be able to hover the hands off of the ground. And then exhale, release, coming back forward, down, forehead down to the ground. Inhale, peel and lift up. Exhale, lower back down. And moving at your own pace here, we're taking this movement a few more times. Just feeling that wave-like motion that you're creating throughout the spine all the way to the top of the head. Great job. Lifting up one more time for baby cobra. Maybe you could lift up a little higher. And then placing the forearms on the ground, stacking the shoulders right over the elbows. Your forearms are parallel, palms face down to the ground. The force is such that you're sliding your hands back towards your body. So almost like you're pulling inward, but you're lifting the chest forward and up. And then exhale, release. And let's take that a couple more times, sliding your palms down to you as you lift the chest up. And then release. And then one more time. And then release. I'm going to turn to face you because this is a little easier to see from this angle. But if you reach the fingertips out to the side, so really coming up onto those fingertips, your chest, your head are lifted. We're going to drop the right shoulder down to the ground, creating this rotation in the spine, and then lift back up, and then rotate, dropping opposite shoulder down and back up. And we're just finding some play here, exploring this movement. What does your shoulder need? So it kind of feels like my right shoulder in the front is a little more tight than the left today. Just goes to show you how different sides of the body need something different daily. And then let's take this one more time on each side. Excellent job. Extending your arms out into a T position. We're going to bend your right elbow, taking the palm down to the ground, and then go ahead and kick that right leg up and over, finding a gentle twist. The toe does not need to touch the ground, but if it does, that's fine for a little bit of support. Really reaching those left fingertips out to the side. You can allow your head to rest on the ground if that's more comfortable for the neck. Inhale, and as you exhale, untwist, extending that right arm out to the side, bending the left elbow, rooting the hand into the ground, kicking that leg up and over for a stretch on the other side. Feeling that expansion across the front of the shoulder. And then exhale, release, untwisting. Similarly, extending the left arm out, but this time bending the elbow. Kicking that right leg up and over. This may be a little more intense. You might not have as much motion as you did with that first position. But we're breathing into that space, creating some openness across the chest. Release that twist, switching your arms, planting that left hand down to the ground, bending the right elbow, kicking that left leg up and over. Inhaling deeply, exhaling to release throughout the front of the shoulder. And then exhale, release that twist. And we're taking the hands underneath the shoulders, peeling it up into cobra one more time. And then sending the hips up and back. Finding your way into child's pose, letting the forehead rest on the ground, taking the hands down by your side. Just letting go, letting the shoulders be heavy. Reaching the hands back up overhead. Nice and long. Press it up into your tabletop, and let's tuck the toes and send the hips up and back into downward facing dog. Maybe you can extend those legs out a little longer, dropping the heels down. Inhale deeply, exhale completely. Taking your gaze up between the hands, let's march the feet up to meet the hands at the top of your mat. Inhale, float it up into flat back, looping those shoulders down and back, tucking the chin in. Inhale, sweep the arms up overhead, lacing the fingers together, index finger points up to the ceiling. Little baby back bend here. And then inhale to lift up, taking both hands to heart center. Shifting your weight onto left leg, finding your nice tree pose here. Rooting down into the ground, finding that focal point, that drishti point. When you're ready, you can grow those branches out tall and wide. Try to soften the shoulders down and away from the ears. Pressing that knee open. Taking the hands to heart center, let's step your left foot back behind you, gently turning that toe open. Feet are on railroad tracks here, so we're setting ourselves up for our warrior one. Squaring off the hips to the front of your mat. Inhale, sweep both arms up overhead, bending that front knee. Stacking the knee over the ankle, drawing belly button into spine, and try to relax those shoulders. Really driving that back heel down to the ground. Find your balance. Taking the hands to the hips, straightening that front leg. Inhale to grow tall through the crown of the head, and then exhale to hinge forward at the hips rather than rounding at the spine. As you begin to lower down to the ground, see if you can bring that left hip forward. So we're kind of rotating the pelvis. That's going to give you a little deeper stretch throughout that front leg. Bending that front knee, take the hands down the floor, and then extend that left leg back behind you, finding a nice runner's lunge here. Really pulling that chest forward, lifting the head up. Take a moment here. Go ahead and grab your block and place it inside the arch of the foot. Root the left hand down onto the block as you inhale, floating that right hand up, taking a spinal twist. Spiraling that palm to face back behind you, go ahead and bend your elbow, reaching to the opposite hip crest. Loop the right shoulder down and back to expand across the chest. Keeping the head in a neutral position so we're not straining the neck. Breathe. Inhale, float that right hand back up overhead. Exhale, unwind from your twist. Placing both hands on the floor, you can move your block off to the side for a moment. Rooting both hands down into the ground, stepping your right foot back into high plank. Pushing that floor away from you. And then sending the hips up and back for downward dog. Finding a moment here. Pedal the heels out if that feels good. Try to drop the shoulders away from the ears. Slow the heart rate. Great job. Find some stillness here, anchoring the heels down toward the ground. They don't have to go down completely. Take the gaze up between the hands and let's march the feet back up to meet your hands at the top of the mat. Inhale, come on up into flat back, looping shoulders down and back, pulling that chest forward. And breathe. Inhale, reaching those hands up overhead, lacing the fingers opposite grip now. Index finger still points up to the ceiling. And then exhale, a little back bend here. And inhale, lift it up, cactusing the arms, drawing the elbows down toward the rib cage, lifting the chest up to the sky. Exhale, release the hands overhead. Taking hands to heart center, we're shifting the weight onto the left foot now, finding our tree pose on the other side. Really grounding down, placing the sole of the foot to the inner shin or the inner thigh, whatever feels good this evening. Growing tall through the crown of the head. Can you ungrip those toes on the standing leg? And then reach the arms up overhead, growing your branches out wide. Try to soften the shoulders away from the ears and breathe. Take your hands to heart center and step the right foot back, finding your feet on railroad tracks, back toes turned out slightly. Let's bend that front knee, stacking it over the ankle. Square off your hips to the front of your mat as you reach both arms up overhead for warrior one. Soften the shoulders away from the ears as you draw the belly button into the spine. Breathe here for a moment. Taking the hands to the hips, let's straighten that front knee. Inhale, grow tall through the crown of the head, and then exhale, hinge forward at the hips. Okay, so we can play around here with the hip position. So if you spiral that left hip backward, it's going to give you a little more alignment throughout that left leg. Once again, trying not to grip through the toes. Chest is proud. Softly bending that front knee, taking the hands down toward the floor, elongating that leg so that we can come on down into a runner's lunge. Getting the feet on railroad tracks here, coming up onto the fingertips. Let's loop the shoulders down and back, peeling that chest forward. Taking your block inside the arch of the foot, rooting that right hand down into the block. Inhale, float the left arm up to the ceiling. Maybe you take your gaze up toward the hand or keep the gaze forward, whatever feels more comfortable on your neck. Spiral the palm to face behind you and then bend that elbow, reaching to the opposite hip crest. So that left shoulder loops down and back. That's going to create a little expansion across the chest. Really great for the posture. Release that bind, reaching the hand back up to the ceiling, and then exhale, spiraling back into that low lunge. Move your block off to the side. Anchoring the hands down into the ground, step your left foot back, finding high plank, lowering the knees to the ground. And let's come down onto the forearms here. Okay, so we might need to walk our knees back for a moment. And then lower the hips down to the ground for Sphinx pose. Taking a moment to pause here. So really getting your alignment, really grounding down throughout the palms, getting both forearms parallel with each other. Okay, coming into dolphin pose. We're warmed up for this. You're going to tuck the toes, press down into the palms, and then send the hips up and back, almost like you're coming into downward facing dog. But then you walk your toes up a little bit. So that's going to bring the hips up toward the ceiling. And we're here holding, dropping those heels down for 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and lower knees to ground. And then send the hips back, child's pose. Taking the forehead down to the floor, you can reach the arms down by your side and let everything go. And breathe. On your next exhale, let's roll it up into a tall kneeling position. The head is heavy and is the last thing to come up. Spiraling the palms to face forward, looping the shoulders down and back. Reaching both fingertips back, lifting the chest up to the sky for camel pose. So you have two options here. You can use your blocks to bring the fingertips on, or you can do this without your blocks, or we can reach one hand back to the heel and then the other hand back to the heel. So this is a little bit of a deep front body stretch. If this is feeling uncomfortable in the spine, the thighs, or the shoulders, please come out and do blocks or no blocks. Okay? Wherever you are, holding, breathing. 3, 2, 1. Release to come back up, taking both hands down to the ground. Tucking the toes, let's send the hips up and back, downward dog. Once again, pedaling those heels out. And then finding some stillness. Let's separate the feet about hips distance apart. Sending your weight into that left hand, we're going to twist to tap the right hand to the left toes. And then release, taking the opposite side. So we're getting this cross-body toe touch here in downward dog. So I'm going to take this a couple more times on each side, just getting some heat building, weight bearing through the arms. If there's any discomfort, you can come out of this, or you can just hold downward dog. And last one here. Holding, breathing, and then lowering the knees down to the ground. Taking a moment here. Maybe you come up onto fist to stretch out the wrist there. Taking both palms to the floor. We're flipping. Go ahead and flip your left hand so that you come onto the top of the hand. Really stretching out that forearm, stretching out the wrist. And then let's take the other side. Great job. And then release. So we're coming down into a side plank here. So we haven't done side plank in a little while. So pick a side, any side, we'll do both. When we're setting ourselves up for side plank position, we're coming down onto the forearm. We want the shoulder stacked over the elbow and the palm facing down to the floor. You can bend both knees. And when we send the hips up, we want shoulder, hip, and knee in a straight line. You can take the hand to the hip or overhead, a little more advanced. If this is too easy, you can extend that top leg out or both. Wherever you are, whatever is in your practice, we're honoring that and breathing and holding for 3, 2, 1. Softly lower that hip down to the ground. Then we're going to spiral around to take the other side. Stacking that opposite elbow over the, or opposite shoulder over the elbow. Palm faces down to the ground. You can take the hand to the hip and then send the hips up, checking in to make sure that the shoulders, hips, and knees are in good alignment. So you may need to shift the hips forward a little bit by squeezing the glutes. This might be enough of a challenge. If you want more, you can extend that arm up overhead, one leg out, or both legs. Wherever you are, holding, breathing, kind of inviting that shake. And then exhale, releasing the hips to the ground, and we'll roll over onto our backs. Excellent job. Walking the heels up towards your hips. Take a deep cleansing inhale. Exhale, letting go completely. Letting the shoulders melt, letting the jaw soften. Plant both palms down into the ground. Send the hips up, finding our bridge pose. Keeping the knees in line with the hips. Squeezing the back of the body. And then begin to walk the fingers underneath the hips, placing fingertips and walking the shoulder blades together to expand more across the chest. Keep those hips engaged. And release the fingers, lowering down one spinal segment at a time until your tailbone is the last thing that comes down to the ground. We're going to hug both knees right into the chest. Lifting that forehead up, hugging, hugging, hugging tightly. And then continue hugging that right knee as you extend the left leg out long. Letting the leg come down to the ground, still hugging that right knee into chest. Allowing that right knee to drop down and out to the side. Coming back through center and taking the knee across the body for a gentle spinal twist. Maybe you extend that right arm out to the side and take your gaze down that arm. And then release, coming back through center. Bend your left knee, taking the foot to the floor. Place the fingers behind the thigh and inhale, straighten that right leg. Draw the toes up to the shins. We're finding length throughout the back of that leg. If you want, you can walk your hands up the calf. Maybe that feels good. Maybe it feels fine to just stay with the hands behind the leg. Go ahead and bend that knee, taking the ankle over the knee, gently pushing the knee away from you. Step your left foot up this time, catching the back of the thigh with laced fingers for a figure 4 stretch. If this is making the hip on the right side feel pretty cranky, you can release, keeping that stretch. If you want a little more out of this, you can straighten that left leg and pull that leg a little closer to your body. And then exhale, release that foot to the floor, uncrossing the leg. Just taking a moment to notice the difference between right and left side. Okay, other side. Let's hug both knees back into the chest, taking the forehead up to the knees, really squeezing throughout the core. Continue hugging your left leg in as you extend the right leg out long, taking it to the floor. And finally, resting the head on the ground. Inhale and exhale. On your next exhale, take the knee down and out to the left side of your body. Coming through center, go ahead and cross that knee over to the other side, gentle spinal twist, extending that left arm out, taking your gaze down down the left hand. Release to come back through center. Let's bend your right leg. Lacing the fingers behind the thigh. Inhale, float that leg up toward the ceiling. Drawing the toes up to the shins, feeling that length throughout the back of the left leg. Soft bend in that knee as you crisscross that ankle over the knee and gently push the knee away from you. This might be enough of a stretch. If you wanted a little more, you could step your right foot up, catching the back of the thigh with lace fingers. Inhale and exhale. On your next inhale, go ahead and straighten that right leg. Maybe pull that leg up a little more. Bending the knee, releasing the foot to the floor, uncrossing the leg. Let's extend both legs out long. Feeling that sensation that you've just created in the body. Go ahead and walk your thumbs underneath both hips. So we're just giving you an anchor point so we can come up into fish pose. Bending both elbows, keeping them close to the body as you lift the chin up toward the ceiling, letting the head drop back. Really feeling that stretch throughout the front of the body. If that feels uncomfortable on the back of the neck, you can give the head better alignment by lifting it up. Wherever you are, though, we're lifting the chest up to the ceiling. Inhale, exhale. And on your next exhale, go ahead and release everything down to the ground. Bending both knees, taking the feet out wide as the edges of your yoga mat. Extending the arms out into a T position. Just begin to rock the knees from side to side. Nice windshield wiper motion. Massaging that low back. Finding some stillness here, walk both feet into the center of the mat. Keeping the soles of the feet together, let the knees fall open. Taking the hands down by your side, palms face up to the ceiling. Try to relax the shoulders away from the ears. Making any little adjustments that you need. I'm going to take 3 to 5 breaths here in reclined bound angle. Using the hands to draw the knees back up to center. And extending the left leg out and then the right leg. Grabbing anything you might need for your Shavasana, like a blanket or an eye cover. And once you find a comfortable position, begin to close the eyes, relax the forehead, softening the brow. And let go over and over again with every exhale, melting into the ground below you, feeling that support and the connection to the earth. The toes are relaxed, your legs are heavy. Letting go of tension in the pelvis, the hips, belly, the low back. Notice the rise and the fall of the belly on every inhale and exhale. Feeling that openness of the heart space. Arms are heavy, fingers are curled slightly, but letting go of any tension, anything that isn't serving you at this very moment. Softening the jaw, letting the shoulders melt away from the ears. Keeping the eyes soft, forehead relaxed. And then taking a body scan from the crown of the head back down to the feet. Where could we invite a little more love, a little more relaxation into the body? Taking a deep inhale and exhale completely. Bend one leg and roll over onto your side, moving with ease, moving with intention. Keep your head heavy as you prop yourself up into a seated position, keeping the eyes closed for a moment. Feeling the joy of the space that you just created. Feel the joy of taking moments to yourself, taking care of yourself. And taking both hands to heart center, drawing the chin down to the chest. May you have peace in your thoughts, in your words, and in your heart. Namaste.